Hey guys, welcome to the Shack, episode number 16. We got a few under the belt now. Still having fun. Beautiful sunny day here in Ohio, and we are gathered around the big table, and we are ready to talk knives. Who's here today?
Scooter here, man, on the inside.
Mikey,
I think this is more of a medium table, actually.
we have the leaf in.
Oh, that's true.
We're ready for company.
Fair enough.
Right on.
So I'm here.
I'm Sam.
And he likes Cheez-Its.
I do quite enjoy Cheez-Its.
So there you have
It's
it.
his catchphrase, actually.
Yeah. Mikey, where can they find all the old cool podcasts that we've done?
Anywhere you can find podcasts, and soon we will be available on Amazon and Audible.
There you go.
Very nice.
Yep. So
Loves
our
me some
podcasts
Audible.
are being podcasted. We're number 26 in some countries and number 300 in others. So just keep your eyes on us climbing the charts. Now we got some episodes out there about knives, about camping, about trucks, and we have one episode that has absolutely nothing to do with anything, which is it's a good one. But today we wanted to talk about knife design. We get asked a lot of times like, hey, why are you doing this knife this way? Or is there a reason you've done this? And I frequently get a email saying, what is the best knife for me? Do I want a Scandi or do I want a flat grind or something like that? So we're going to talk about the designs and how they affect maybe the usage of the knife that you plan on using.
Correct.
Cool.
All right. So who would like to start into the knife design side of things?
I think you should.
Well, I mean, I can. Okay, so, well, here is,
Well, you've taught us all about it, so
okay, well, when you're looking at knife design, there are, believe it or not, a lot of things to consider that people probably have no thought of whatsoever. One is the knife that I'm going to use, that I'm going to design. Let's say I'm going to sit down and I'm going to draw out a knife. Well, what is the main intention of that knife? Okay, I got to kind of start there because a knife is a knife is a knife is a knife. And I'm sure anyone listening to this podcast probably has 20, 30 of them. I mean, we all have more knives than we can ever use, but we love them. We're going to buy more. And as soon as someone comes out with that Excalibur, we're going to buy that one too. So that's going to just keep happening over and over and over. So where do you start? I like to start with the idea, okay, so what am I trying to design a knife to do? A lot of times when I first started out, it was the thought of hunting and or maybe some light bushcraft, although I didn't even know that bushcraft was a thing or anything, and we just called it camping or going in the woods or whatever. So, like, what would I carry if I was going to do something like that? That's where I would start. And believe it or not, a lot of times your design at that time, especially starting out, was dependent on the piece of steel you had available. You know, the size, honestly, if I had a small piece of steel, naturally a small knife. Generally, if you had a bigger piece of steel, you tried to draw something out, or if you were going to forge that piece of steel or whatever you're doing, you're going to try to use that piece of steel. So you're going to work within the boundaries of the piece of steel that you have. So as a hobby maker, I think it's kind of like, hey, what steel do I have available? Whether it be an old lawnmower blade, leaf spring from a car, did I pound out a coil spring and now I have a semi-flat thing and it's about this long? You know, that's going to determine what knife you're messing with at that time.
I think that a lot of times for the hobby makers too, a lot of it is dependent upon what tools you have. Like if you don't have a
that's a good point.
bandsaw,
Yeah.
it can affect your designs because you're going to just make some simple straight cuts that you can do with an angle grinder versus some contoured handle or something like that.
Yeah, and it may be very close to the overall width and length of the piece of steel that you have, as you said, because now less material that you have to cut away or get rid of or grind away or whatever. So that's a good point. So a lot of sometimes the design, believe it or not, is just, I don't want to say out of necessity.
Utility.
Yeah, out of utility. This is what I have available. This is what I can do with it with the tools that I have, so I'm going to be about this size. And I think that's a good way to put it because even in here, even today, when we have some cutoffs that are left over from something that we did design, we generally make something out of it. And we'll take that in a Sharpie and sit down and go, hey, I think we'll make it this long of a blade and this long of a handle. And sometimes, man, they turn into a home run, and we end up making it as a model where it was just like, hey, let's see what we can do with this leftover piece of steel. So we do that even still today, even though we have stuff water jet or we know what size we want to make and we can order specific stuff. You're still going to have some things or mess ups. You know, we cut something wrong, went inside the line, now we got to make it into something else. So then we can go that. But let's just say I have a clean slate. I got all the cool tools. I got any size steel that I want, and I'm going to set out and design a knife. Okay, so again, I'm going to go back to first. What am I going to use this knife for? And then I think, how am I going to carry it? Because that's an important thing too, because size is very dependent on that. Especially you guys who carry, you have your CCW, you know that sure well. And I've told the story before that I had a friend that wanted to carry a Clint Eastwood style 44 revolver after he got his CCW. And I said, you'll carry it for a week. No, man, I'm going to no, you'll carry it for a week. It's too heavy. And he had a shoulder rig, and it was all cool and everything. And I don't even know if he made it a week. And then he hadn't moved it on. So that's the same thing. If you're saying, I'm going to make this knife, and it's going to do this, that, and the other. Okay. But you really got to be honest with yourself. Am I going to carry this knife, and how am I going to carry it? Because if I'm going to carry it on my hip, how big can that knife be? If I'm going to carry it scout style, I could probably get away with something bigger. Shoulder rig, yeah, probably something bigger. You know, stick it in your belt. Again, if you're going to wear something a lot, size and weight is going to matter.
Well, and legality is an important consideration there too, because you know, a lot of places have a lot of different knife rules, and then you really need to pay attention to that wherever you're going, because that can lead to some pretty severe problems for you if you just blow that off. Hopefully, the situation never arises where someone has a problem like that, but boy, if it does, I'd really rather either be covered or know the law enough to say, yes, I'm legal, no, I'm not, and so on and so forth. Very important stuff.
No, and that's absolute truth too. I know it's easier to carry a folder than a fixed blade, but I also do like to carry a fixed blade when I have the opportunity to do so. So size is important in that kind of thing. So let's talk about the blade lengths. What can we do with a blade length of, I don't know, 2.5 to 3.5 inches?
As I've mentioned before, I think my most carried knife was a little Frontier First inverted in Kydex on my hip. That was the best way to have a fixed blade. When it was, it's almost the same size as an what, Nick? No.
This is the best way to have a fixed blade. This is a pocket
He
Kydex
makes one
sheath.
Kydex sheath, and it's the
geez.
best
I
thing
know.
ever.
I love this.
Anyway,
thing. It is
the
so
other
cool.
setup that I had was far, far superior to that, Nick. It didn't really look like a knife, especially if you had a coat on or a long shirt or something like. It's not like I had a Bowie knife on my hip. Quite useful, and I think it was D2. So
Yeah.
it was
No,
sharp
Frontier-
most of the time.
That's a great size knife. Now that is a very small knife.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when
Frontier
we're
First,
talking
yeah.
about size,
Well, you
again,
said like 2.5 inch blade or
Right.
some such.
yeah, 2.5 inch to
So it's a
say
little
3.5
smaller than that,
inch blade. But that's a really good size
It is a good
everyday
size.
carry blade.
Yeah. I
You know,
can
once
open
you start
boxes.
getting past 3.5, in my opinion,
It doesn't
Eh.
look like you're gonna stab anybody.
right?
I did scare somebody at McDonald's once. This lady behind the counter was opening a box of the toys to go in Happy Meals, and she's got her car keys out, and it's not working. And I didn't even think about it. I pulled the knife out, like, "Do you want a knife?" And I'm holding it like this, and she backed up and said, "No, I'm good."
Don't stab me,
And this was a while ago. I'm like, I work in that. It's just
Yeah.
it's a knife. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
It's not like I pulled out 45. Want me to shoot the box open for you? I
Yeah.
can do it.
So
I didn't do
I
it.
would say that size, 2.5, 3.5, if you're looking to make yourself an EDC fixed blade. Now, again, guys, we're talking about fixed blades right now. We'll do a folder show later on. But when we're talking about the fixed blades and we're talking about the knife design, size is definitely going to be. Now, when I say size, that's overall size has got to be a concern. What do you think, Mike?
For sure. I mean, again, it kind of harkens to what Scott was saying and what you were saying, but the end result, the intended purpose of the knife is going to be dictated by size. And if you want an everyday carry knife, you're not going to want to carry a machete around with you. It's just not practical.
Unless you're in the Book of Eli, I guess.
But again, your everyday situation is going to be warranted by
Oh, exactly.
what
yeah.
knife you end
Great
up
tool
carrying.
For a job.
And
Yeah, there you go.
the idea of having, even a full-size woods knife, something 9 inches overall, is going to cause more concern from the others around you because you have that large of a knife on than anything else. And I think that's the biggest factor in everyday carry sizing.
No,
Depends where you're
especially
at,
if
maybe.
you're going to carry it on your purses
Mhm.
or on your person. I totally
Or your
agree.
purse.
Or
I
your
stopped
purse.
carrying knives in my purse
Did you?
because it got
That's
too
good.
heavy.
Well, TSA,
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I think that the overall size is going to be a very big concern when you're designing a knife for yourself. Now, when we look at things, sometimes we're designing knives around price point as well as size and intended use. Because naturally, as
Well,
a knife
yeah.
company, we can't build a 3-inch knife
We're
and
hitting
then
up-
expect to get
Hitting a
$1,200
target.
for it. Price point is very, very important, and sometimes that does dictate our design. So if you're asking, well, how do you get guys come up with your designs? Well, those right there is three factors, right? You're looking at the size. How am I going to carry it? Because why is that so important? Well, my biggest thing is, just like we were talking earlier about the concealed carry, although you love that Smith & Wesson 44 10-inch barrel revolver, it's cool as heck. No reason to get rid of it, but you're not going to carry it every day. Well, we want people that want to carry a knife to be able to carry an LTWK every day if they want to. And if we only made 9-inch overall, 4.5-inch blades or whatever, that probably would take a lot of people out of that carry. So if we're making something that they could potentially carry, so we're going to consider that in the design.
Yeah, and I think user feedback factors into that a lot too. After you've made a couple of knives and you hear from someone, "This is great, but," or "I would really love this if it were not green."
Mm-hmm.
I think all of those things kind of factor into your design process as you go along and you have more and more designs under your belt.
Now, I know one thing for sure on the smaller knives, and I do like all size knives, but I do like the small stuff too. Handle size is a concern for some people because sometimes I have heard, hey, the handle on this knife is too small. Well,
Oh, we've heard everything.
yeah, I mean, you're right.
Too
The
big,
blade's
too
too
wide,
long,
too
too
round.
small,
Too
just right.
thick,
It's
too
the
thin.
Goldilocks thing.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's why I make so many different. That's why it is the best. Although we can't do it right now. Go to a show.
Yeah.
Handle the knives.
Handle the knives. But small, again, when you're looking at a small carry knife, it's probably going to have a little bit smaller handle just overall because not necessarily not for concealability, but for ease of carry. Your overall length and your fixed blade. So
Well,
that
and
is
proportions too, because
Right.
if you have a 1.5-inch blade and a 6-inch handle, it's just going to look weird.
yeah. So yeah, you're going to have looks are
Yes,
very
it
important.
is.
You're going to have a knife that looks kind of cool. I mean, that's the one thing that years ago going to shows and different things. You got to get someone to stop and look at your table. There's a bunch of knife makers in here, right? So why are they going to stop? First thing they're going to stop if they don't know you is something on that table as they're going by that draws their interest. Right, Sam?
Something
Like
bright.
a nice bright color.
Yep.
Okay, there you go.
Orange or blue or green.
Right. And if you can get that, that's step one, and then they can start handling it, as Scott said, and find that one that fits. Because Scott has a medium to smallish hand, I think. Mine are about medium. Mikey's
No,
got
they're
big grizzly mitts.
Yeah.
Nick's big-handed. Sam's got Kydex grip. So, I mean, they me and Scott would probably gravitate to a smaller handle than those two guys, or than Mikey, because Mikey's got those big, long fingers. So, yeah. So it does matter. Although the knife is still cool, where's that going to fit in? So the design aspects of that, going back to some people say, well, the handle on this is too small for me. Well, how are you holding it and what's the intended? Like the Frontier First. The Frontier First is more or less the 3-finger knife. So why would we ever build a 3-finger knife, Scott?
Oh, to make one of the pot house guys angry? Oh.
Besides that,
Oh. Well, it's because proportion, size. In
Right.
some instances, weight.
weight, price point too.
This
I
is
mean-
another one, and I've seen this happen. We want to build this knife, and we want to use this scale material.
Hmm.
This is surely not going to fit a bushcrafter.
Right.
We want to come out with a smaller knife, or a customer points that they want. Like I think the Patriot, that was an NRA banquet knife at some point. I think didn't they want something special in there? One of those knives, I thought we did that. Got this scale material. This is the size knife we're going to make.
Oh yeah, we've done that quite a few times.
So that the whole package comes together.
A customer is looking to get a large number of something, and this is the material they want
Yeah.
to use. A lot of times, natural materials, we can only get them in certain lengths. So that, again, dictates potentially the length of that handle without adding it to the tail or front or
Mhm.
exposing
Making a
the
bolster
tail
or
or
something.
all those
Yeah.
other things.
And I think there is a certain level of confusion in the general public when you say a 3-finger knife. They
Mhm.
immediately think, oh, well, my pinky's just floating out there in space. Well, if you hold it one way, yes. But if you hold it another way where your index finger's near the tip, then
Right.
the blade is all the way in your hand. Yes, it's a 3-finger knife, but you're using your index finger to guide the blade and to
Which is
feel where the
great
tip
for
is.
when you're skinning game and you can't see what you're doing.
Oh,
You don't
absolutely.
want an extra 3 inches of blade out in front of your finger that you can't control.
Right.
So being able to put your finger on that point so you can kind of feel your way around is
Oh, absolutely. And controlling a knife is important too, because a
Right.
cut out in the wild, that's not a good thing to do.
Well, just even like
Mhm.
you're under a car and you can't see where you're cutting, but you know you need to cut
Yeah.
there. It's kind of the same thing as skinning an animal, but I mean, there are
Skinning
more
a Land Rover?
opportunities where you're going to need to know where that knife blade is where you can't see it, and
Right.
using your index finger is a great
Well,
solution.
and that ties in nicely with design characteristics. So if you have jimping or a harpoon style blade, those things all help with that kind of stuff too. And those are definitely things to consider during the design phase, just as much as steel and handle
Right.
material. And when you get down to the basic shape of everything, yes, a knife is just a sharpened piece of metal with a handle, but the sky is the limit on configuration. That's why there's a million knives and a million knife companies.
Yeah, and as far as design goes, when we're talking about a smaller blade and a smaller handle, like what we refer to as a 3-finger knife, because you can only get 3 fingers on it somehow. A couple things that happened there. One was size was a consideration, as Mike pointed out. Using the fingertip down the blade is a good point to know where your point is. But also, a lot of guys, and I am one of them, I pinch the blade with my index finger and my thumb, allowing the other 3 fingers to round up on the handle itself. Or you have a lanyard on the tail of the knife, which extends that handle just a little bit for you. But you still get that smaller package, and that could have been the price point could have been the reason you bought it, or the size, or the weight, or one of those things. One of those factors go into that, I think.
A really interesting historical example of a small knife like that is the OSS lapel dagger that you see from World War II history. It was a really interesting concept where the blade was super, super tiny, and it was made to fit in the lapel of a jacket and to be discreet that way. So in the self-defense world, it seems like smaller knives like that can be really, really super useful, easier to carry, easier to use under the right circumstances. Granted, all that is based on training and everything else.
Somebody still makes that. I think.
A few
don't they?
people do.
Last one I think I saw was in a little plastic sheath with a bunch of holes around it, and that's so you could sew the sheath
Yep.
right up in there
Yep.
with
Yeah.
the blade.
So there are still, definitely
slick.
modern versions of it, but small knives sometimes that kind of design and process of making a knife can be really cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. So the size, getting the 3-finger knife, the shape of the blade, when we're talking again, now we're going to go back to design a little bit. You have everything from a Warncliffe style, which is a flat bottom, sharpened edge, let's say to a spear point, which is a center pointed knife, to a drop point, which is just a slight drop, and those are great game knives, or even kitchen knives for that matter, to an upswept like one of our swoops might be, or clip point, There's a lot of different things. So again, what am I going to do with this? So just generally, because we're probably, I'd say we're bushcraft, hunting, and kitchen knife oriented for the most part. Right now is where we're,
And EDC.
And EDC, yeah. The bulk of our business, throwing
Yeah.
stuff in the truck and things. But bushcraft is still definitely the biggest part.
Mhm.
So we do a lot of spear point stuff, for sure. So
Yep.
experiencing with a spear point, Sammy, what are you drawn to when you're thinking spear point?
What am I drawn to? Like
Yeah.
what knife would I think of?
Well, I mean, what are you thinking? Like, again, if I'm looking at the design of a knife, and I say to you, hey, here's a spear point knife, where's your brain going?
First thing that comes into my head is Genesis.
Genesis. Okay, so you're basically bushcraft.
Yeah.
Okay.
Scott
So-
had his hand up for some reason.
Well, he probably wants to interject. By all means.
Of course I do. The
So
bushcrafter,
excited.
my favorite spear point.
And first thing popped in my head is Genesis.
Yeah, mine too. It's just a way that.
Yeah. See, now
Also-
I've always been a fan of this, and we kind of had this discussion when we started talking about knives when I first got here. Was I love the idea of a spear point, but I don't like the rounded tips like the bushcrafter or the Genesis. I prefer something with more of a point like the GNS, because I find when you're drilling holes and things like that, that having more of a point, a narrower tip to it, generally works better for me.
I've drilled holes with the bushcrafter when we took that class,
Oh yeah.
and I stole
Yeah.
Tim's kindling, or
Right.
fire bundle.
Poor Tim.
Shout out to
That's
Tim Stetzer, by
Sorry,
the way.
Tim. But since I made that fire and I cut that board with, and I did everything with the bushcrafter, that's always will be like one of my go-tos.
Mhm.
Just because
So-
I know I can do stuff with it.
So if someone came up and said, "Hey, I want to design a bushcraft knife," the first things that immediately jump in my head are spear point, about 4 inches long, generous handle. Just immediately.
Yeah.
Now everything else is going to come from that, but that's my experience with bushcraft. Those are the things. The handle has to be big. It has to be comfortable. It has to be controllable. Spear point is the way to go. About 4 inches. I remember a number of years ago, about when the bushcrafter was coming out, 4 inch was the bushcraft size. Now it's kind of
good size.
gravitated into 5 and plus.
5 to 6.
Yeah, that's kind of where the home base of bushcraft.
People really seem to enjoy having that little bit of extra sharpened edge, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, absolutely. So handle size. Now we've talked about the blade length a little bit. Small knives. Handle size, quite important when you're designing a knife, because if you can go from 3 fingers to a full grip to an extended handle. Some of the reasons for an extended handle, Nick?
Well, I suppose that big part of that plays into the rest of the design of the knife. If you want to have multiple grips, that's a good reason for,
Oh yeah.
having that kind of setup. If you have bow drill divots, or you're going to use the handle portion or other parts of the knife in different ways, that all plays into that. So we've made a bunch of different knives with a bunch of different characteristics like that offer multiple grips. The Genesis is a good example in a lot of ways because it's got the thumb scallops on either side. And that gives you a lot of different options, not necessarily with a huge handle. It's nice and proportional, I think, to the rest of the knife. But yeah, gives you a lot of ability there.
Well, you touched on something for handle length, different grips. Forward grip, rearward grip. Maybe it's a medium to larger knife, choking up on the knife a little bit to do some fine detail work while being able to pull back on the knife to do some chopping with it. So I agree with you on that. Balance is an important part of it as well. If you have that counterbalance, maybe you have a little bit longer blade and it was a little bit too front heavy. If the handle was just a hair longer, it's going to change your balance points a little bit. That's probably a bit of a concern there too for
For sure.
having that
For sure.
longer or larger handle. I find the handles that are a little bit wider, and again, now this is going to go specifically in my design. If I'm thinking bushcraft, a lot of the guys that we run with and that we know sit around, do whittling, making spoons, doing some pot sticks, toggles for their hammocks, tent stakes, that kind of thing.
Feather sticks.
Feather sticks. You need to have a generous handle because you're going to be holding that thing for quite a while. So we kind of think on that line, how does it fit the hand? where is it going to feel the best? Whereas when you think maybe a kitchen knife, a little more delicate handle in the sense that it's going to be thinner, maybe a little squared more in the edges as opposed to rounding, and that just from a kitchen point of view, indexing.
Right, and I think the other big thing is that a great example between a bushcraft knife and a kitchen knife is you hold those in two very, very different ways.
Oh, sure.
Most people will pinch the blade with a kitchen knife and kind of have their hand free float over the handle, so the handle serves more as a balance counterweight than if you're bushcrafting and you need to be able to torque and control the blade of the knife when you're carving, cutting, those types of things. And I think the other
Drilling.
big thing for me, especially with someone who has larger hands, is that having a little bit of that handle sticking out of the back,
Mm-hmm.
so that if you're going to drill or you need to hit the end of the handle, having it stick out past your hand makes a lot more sense.
And a larger handle like that for winter use, if you have a glove on.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have a knife that's fitting your hand with nothing on it, right now in the summer you're wearing shorts and a t-shirt, you got in the winter, you may not enjoy using that knife. You may not be able to manipulate that smaller handled knife as much as the larger one.
True.
Yep, so that's going to give you
So
some
use the
advantage
next
in-
gen in the summer and the regular Genesis in the winter.
Exactly, because then you got the extra handle.
Something I'm always interested in seeing is when you get crossover between different genres of knives.
Mhm.
So like, I always think of the old hickory as a real prime example of this, where a kitchen knife that turned out to be really great in the woods in general.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Mhm.
And things like that. I always
One
found
of our
that really
kitchen knives.
fascinating.
Which one you like for that? I
The
know
large
you like-
powder is
Yeah,
the one
yeah.
that George Bushcraft has actually turned into a woods knife.
Yeah, that's
And
been a crossover knife.
It's,
And
yeah,
in a
that's-
full
That's
flat.
great for
And
that.
the small for EDC is fantastic.
Oh, yeah, I'm a big fan of that.
That's
as well.
mainly just because it goes in Nick's special sheath that he made.
And everything works really good.
It does. It's true. He's not lying. It's very true. It's a great knife for
No, but I
EDC.
mean there you go. That knife design fit a use for you.
Yes, very
so
much.
you
so.
designed a sheath around it so you could carry it a specific way. So that does matter. The design.
And I think that kind of segues easily into kind of how we've often talked about knives and design knives, is that we factor into the sheath and how we're going to carry the knife,
Right.
because we want to make a complete package. We don't want to just sell you a knife. We don't want you to just sell a sheath. If you have a great knife and a crappy nylon sheath, you're never going to carry it. And if you have a great sheath, but the knife always falls out of it, you're not going to carry it.
Yep. And again, for you gun guys, just to relay it to how many holsters you got,
Oh,
right?
God, that
mean,
is
because that's the thing.
probably.
I did have more. I'm scaling down, but
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean that's important.
summer,
how
winter,
am I going to carry that knife?
IWB,
Almost every gun owner I've ever
all
talked
different
to,
kinds.
and
of
I'm the same way. I have a big Rubbermaid tote of just holsters
Yep.
and different things I've tried over the years.
Probably 5 times as many holsters as you have guns.
Well, see, I try to give them away as I decide that I don't like them anymore. So I try to keep the bin only, a certain level of full, because
Certain level of currentness.
I have one of
That's
those
right.
giveaway holsters.
and
Actually,
so
I-
does Scott.
I have
actually,
two.
No, what do I have?
you just got
The one
the
you got
the
that
ankle
leg rig
holster
you
off
was-
me.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
That's right.
Which
that's
is
right.
great.
Just
Not
didn't-
saying to wear your gun in church, but if you're wearing khakis at a semi-formal function, works pretty good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that I mean, knife design goes right into the sheath design. I agree with everything you said there, because if you don't like the way, or if you don't like the sheath and it's a really cool knife, you're still not going to carry it.
Well,
There has to
there's
be
a
a
whole
comfort and
cottage
cool.
industry built around aftermarket sheaths.
Oh yeah,
for knives.
absolutely,
Yeah, that's for sure.
absolutely.
Right, Sam?
And we're trying. Yeah, well, we do.
Leather
You're
or
right. We do a
Kydex?
lot of Kydex work
We sure
because
do,
of
and
it.
it's great
Yeah.
work.
And we do a lot of other companies' knives. People send them, and we're glad to do it. A lot of the guys, the companies we're friends of, we'll gladly Kydex their knife. But it just gives you a different option for the carry. So that design not only falls into the knife, but it also can go into the sheath and then become that complete package, as Mike said,
Oh no,
which is super important.
what is
which I
that
like a lot.
menagerie?
I just got a whole bunch of demo things out here to
Go
talk
ahead.
about. That's all. No,
Come
I was just being funny.
You grab Scott's attention.
Oh, here.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, the kukri style kind of blade. I like those.
That's a lot Kydex.
Yep. So that's what I mean. There's a different tasks for different knives. And then now you always have that big versus small knife thing. You can always take that big knife to do the smaller task, but there is going to be a limit in upsizing your small
So
knife.
this is a
Definitely.
daily
Right,
carry
Sam?
kukri?
That's
Yeah, I
right.
don't want to. Definitely don't want to baton anything with a
so he can
Patriot.
hook it into his belt.
I think people do tend to underestimate smaller knives, though. There is a lot of functionality in smaller
Got
knives.
some stuff
But
in
I
there.
absolutely agree with what you're saying, LT, where,
You can make a small knife only so big, but you
Right.
can make any big knife infinitely
Right.
smaller.
But okay, so right now I gave Scott this RMJ kukri that was gifted to me to play with right now, and he's
Oh, yeah.
he's
Well,
going to
cool
town
knife.
here. But if I walked into Walmart wearing my RMJ kukri rig with
Right.
matching little knife attached to the big sheath,
I don't think
Now,
they
if
care
that
as long as you have your
Walmart was
mask
in
on.
Istanbul, you'd be fine.
right? I'm pretty sure I'd
But is
get stopped
but
at
man-
least or asked to leave. But
To carry that in the Jeep and go in the woods for a weekend,
Might
that's a
not be
fun
too
knife,
bad.
man.
Right.
Throw that on your hip and just go.
But
Yeah, I
if I
can't
take
expect
my
anyone to stab
3-inch,
myself.
Yeah.
small powder blade in my pocket that nobody can see,
Yeah.
that's not a problem at all.
No, that's a cool setup.
It's
Oh,
very
no
snug.
doubt
Be
about it.
careful.
I see.
That's going to end poorly.
I don't care.
I made it, so it was one of my Sam supervising sheaths.
Yeah, it's a good
Oh, you
setup.
made that?
Mhm.
Nice
Oh,
piggyback rig
That
you
looks
got
great.
going
I
there.
like the slots on there. I like that.
I don't make
Yeah.
Nick sheaths anymore.
I
I,
don't-
make him do them himself.
He just watches.
I don't
and
like that your
criticizes.
knuckles drag over every other rivet in the house.
I
To
know.
get the
I need to make a
thing.
good space.
Well,
for it.
that's
But
where he's
anyway,
got to work on his sheath design
That's
a little
right.
bit, right? Yeah.
Well, you just need more washers back on that side.
Yeah.
the Grandmaster.
This you could get
Sam
away
here
with
is-
going into Walmart.
Oh sure,
hmm
he's learning me in his ways.
Yeah. So I think like on when you're talking about the knife design, we talked about the size. Now blade shape, we talked about it a little bit, but belly on the blade compared to like a straight section of blade. For instance, our small and large northern hunters have very much of a curved blade to them, front to back, where the Genesis has a flat section, then a belly up to the point. And again, going back to maybe just a few different tacks. You know what I like the small northern hunter for? Not only game, but kitchen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
This
is
it's
a
surprisingly
wildly
nice.
underrated kitchen
Yeah,
knife.
surprisingly nice. And again, really wasn't designed to go that way, but sure does work, right? So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
When you're designing, we also talked about sometimes we have to design around the material that we have. And I'll give you a good example of that. A lot of times when you're buying stag is imported. It comes 4.5 inches, I think, is the max.
Well,
to get the longer stuff.
You would need a small loan to buy anything more larger
Exactly.
than
There
It-
is that.
well,
it is
there is a point.
extraordinarily expensive.
So now you've got to understand that 4.5 end to end. You've still got to take a little bit off of that to clean it up, get it all polished the way you want. So now, I'm going to use a number 4.25 just for the heck of it. Well, that's going to limit your handle to that size. So now you either have to put a bolster of some sort on it to give you a little more extension,
Or have an exposed rear tang.
or have an exposed
set
tang
up,
in the
or-
rear.
You could get around that a little bit, but
Right.
yeah, you're sort of limited.
But then you're looking at price point. So here you go now. Where is my design falling in? Is this a user and I am okay with putting a brass bolster on it, or maybe my Micarta bolster on the front of it? Or am I looking to make this a 100-piece run and price pointed at X number of dollars? So there's concern there. And that's where size then comes in. I need to fit the handle to this piece of material that I'm doing.
Yep.
Or someone brings us an antique piece of wood and it's only so big. We've had that.
Yeah.
Hey, can I have this put on a knife? Yeah, but here's the...
Yeah.
And then he'll show me a Bowie knife and go, no, we can't do that,
Yeah.
but we can make it a pocket knife.
we don't have
Well,
any
the other
Miracle
thing
Grow
for
steel
us as
material.
a production style knife company is that we have to look at repeatability too.
Sure.
So if there's some special wood or special stag or unique material that you can't get a large quantity of and can't get it again in a year, those all factor into the design process for us and
Mhm.
kind of affect the decisions that we make as to what materials we will put on the knife.
Yep. So there's a lot that does go into the design. I would encourage anyone who's, doing some hobby work, having fun making your knives and stuff, err on the side of simplicity. Okay, don't think overcomplicated. don't think I'm going to have
Yep.
sawtooth on the back of it, and I'm going to put serrations, and I'm going to put a hole in the blade so I can look through it. You know, I don't need a pot hook on my first few knives. I don't need exposed tang glass breakers.
Skip the gut hook.
Skip the
Oh,
gut
God.
hook. You know, err on the supply. As Nick said earlier, Old Hickory Butcher Knife does a fun. That's a fun weekend in the woods with a knife like that, no doubt. Part of it is the thinness of the blade. You know, so that's another factor in your design. Thick, thin. What are you simply going back to? What am I going to use this for?
Sure.
The thin, thick thing, right?
Right.
And design a knife that you're gonna want to make again.
Well, and a lot of that too, what you're talking about, LT, ties into, you know, what the broad knife community would, I think, classify as, you know, knife geometry, edge geometry, and all those things. Thicker versus thinner steel, you know, and so much of that comes down to what you're doing with the knife. And do you want it to be sort of slicey, or do you want it to be kind of beastly and, you know,
Right.
crowbar with a sharpened edge on it? Those are very different knives. I mean, and the
If you
execution
are-
is very different.
If you're making one knife yourself in your basement, you should also consider this. What is my normal way to sharpen a knife?
Absolutely. I
Because
was going to bring
the-
that up too.
Well, the thickness of the steel, the height of the grind, and then the height of the sharpened edge, that all has to kind of jive together.
And what you have tool-wise to actually work on that
You-
steel with is
yeah.
going to play a major
If
factor.
you want to really build Excalibur, is that going to fit your Lansky clamp?
And,
No.
you know, some of the hot rod steels, let's say that you can get a piece of Rex 45 that, you know, has been heat treated and tempered properly and all that. Well, that's in the 62 to 64 Rockwell then. You're going to be working on that with a leather strop and a regular Arkansas stone for a while. So if you're not, you know,
Yep.
if you're not geared up for it, be careful.
This is something else, and looking at this knife here reminded me of it. And whenever we have a knife design and we're going to redesign it or give it a recap, and I redraw the thing, LT had me come out here in the shop and put a belt on all these little wheels that we have and measure that wheel with the belt on it. So that now when I draw this knife and it goes to the water jet like this, I know you can't see this, but the finger groove in the big camp kitchen knife, that fits one of our wheels
Right.
with a belt. So I changed the radius, for instance, stuff like that. So if you're drawing a knife, draw the radiuses and curves to what you might have already.
Because otherwise, it's a difficult task.
Because
Yeah.
if you say, boy, that radius would look good 3/4 of an inch, but all I have is the 1/4 inch wheel, it's going to leave little divot marks and pockets in there.
Yep.
Or if it's the other way around, now you're going to have to take steel away to fit the wheel you have. So keep that in mind too.
Yep.
That's a good thought. I hadn't thought about that, like the wheels
Don't
that you're
just-
working with. Yeah.
Don't just lay a quarter on your draft paper and draw a radius and then go, well,
Right.
I have
Right.
nothing to fit this now.
Because it can be
when I
done.
make it
but
big.
let's say you're
Yeah.
one of those people that loves finger grooves on a knife handle.
Mhm.
Well, doing that without what we're describing, some of the tools like a small wheel, that can be extraordinarily challenging. Not
Yeah.
just like, not even
Or
just the
take too
roughing
long.
it in part, but like final execution. Wow, that can be a
Right.
super huge pain if you just have a slack belt where you're trying to do it by hand.
Well, and I think
Yep.
we're looking at it very much from we have time and we only have so much time that we can devote to it. Whereas if you're a hobby maker and you're making that one knife a year, or you know, it doesn't
Well-
matter how long it takes for you, then you can get away with some of more of those things. But from
Little
our
bit.
point of view, all of those things make a huge
It'll still get
difference.
frustrating
Yeah.
hand filing something.
I was
for
about to
a
say,
day.
and I know LT and I have talked about this numerous times where we both not drive-through mentality, but I want my knife done now. You know,
It's
when
the
I'm making
Amazon
a knife for
mentality.
myself, I would rather it be done for this weekend's trip rather than next year's weekend. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah,
I'm sure we've all seen them videos of a handmade knife of a guy in a cabin, and there's the fireplace, and all he has is hand files and a few pieces of sandpaper.
Mhm.
You can do it.
Absolutely.
Very doable.
Mhm.
That's
you
one of the
want
neat
to.
things. It's just going to take you a month and a half.
exactly.
It is.
And
Very good.
every time you get a piece of equipment, I like when we have our knife classes, and you tell stories of All I had, you know that jig that holds your drill and now it's a drill press? Okay, that was one step up from a hand drill.
I love those
And then I
jigs.
got the R.W. Wilson machine, and now I
Right.
could do
Yeah,
more with that.
the,
The more equipment you get, the faster
sanding
it does.
drums that fit in the drill press.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, that used to be
Oh.
my radius wheels. Absolutely.
Those are all
Those
steps in the
things
right
are
direction
brutal.
for speed and efficiency, but
I think another thing, like Scott was saying, when we do the wheels, we design that around that knife, but we also look at that knife and we try not to say this is the only use for this thing. We want to picture it in a Scandi grind. We want to picture it in a saber grind. We want to picture it full convex. We want to picture it flat. Does
Yeah.
that knife design that I've laid out here on the table, does that give that to me? Am I going to be able to transfer that knife and sell it to the guys in bushcraft because it's a cool knife design and it works well, and also sell it to the mother that likes to do a lot of cooking on the weekends because it's going to make a great flat grind kitchen knife depending on the steel and the thickness we use. So when you set out and you design your knife, you have your profile laying there. Well, now you have to decide what kind of steel do I want, how thick do I want it, and what grind. So here's the thing. Draw a cool knife, design something cool, and then let it transfer itself by the thickness that you choose and the grind that you choose. You may be able to cover multiple genres there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't,
For those of you
Sure.
who can't see what just happened,
just
he
nod and
pointed at
grin,
me and I
Sam.
nodded.
Just nod
LT
and grin.
gave Sam the sign to
was
run
like,
with
I
what he was saying.
I was hardcore listening to what he was explaining. and
He was
cool.
he was
I
a
was-
customer.
I was looking at this knife on the table going, I've never pictured that in a Scandi before.
Yeah, but
And I'm not hating it.
No,
Yeah.
but do you see how that can transfer, right? Because
I
we're just now
am.
talking about it. You're like,
And
you
then
know,
you pointed at me and I'm like,
I
Could you
think this
imagine-
also
I gotta
goes
talk
to a couple more things that we do a lot of times that people don't generally see is every time we design a knife, we make a plywood version of it.
right?
And we cut it out and we hand it to everybody in the shop because we all have different experiences. We've all gotten to a level of expertise in a different way. So we're all going to handle these knives and say, oh, I really like this, or I don't like that, or this doesn't fit, or it'd be better if this were not here, or this was here. And that design by committee technique, excuse me, at the final step seems to really add that next level of design process, and to really spot some things that you might not notice when you first drew the knife, but somebody else will immediately notice and say, this is going to cause me a hot spot, or, I don't like this pokes me weird, something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, varied input is good like that because not only, like you're saying, do we have different size hands or different eye for aesthetics, but we also, we very much have different taste in knives. Like there's a lot of similarities between us, but then there's also a pretty broad, spectrum of what we like and what we don't like there. And
Yeah. Taking this knife that Sam was talking about, and he's looking at the small
want it-
northern
yeah,
hunter.
put a
I kinda wanna
Scandi
put a
grind
Scandi
small
on
northern
Well,
hunter.
that's what I'm thinking.
fine.
Doing this knife in 3/3. Again, we're talking different thicknesses. So here's a cool design we like to design. We do it in saber and flat for the most part. I think we have done some convex, I
Yeah.
believe. Right?
Yeah, no.
Yep.
I don't know that we've done a Scandi.
we
I
have
don't.
not.
No.
Well, here's taking this,
Do
go
it.
3/32 stock,
Do it.
Scandi it, bring the handle down here where your drip notch is, so you have you know what I'm saying?
Hold it
Do a little
sideways.
contour behind the front for the throat,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh, baby thumb
Do
scalps.
a barrel-shaped handle.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, you got
Wait.
a mini bushcrafter.
Did you
We
hear
just
the?
designed a new knife. On
I
the
know, is that
podcast.
not
Right?
Did you
And
hear the
that's
phone
how
ring?
it goes,
Slade
folks.
just ordered one.
Yeah, the phone's ringing right
Yeah.
Slade just got one.
now. Yeah. That's
Shout
right.
out
Slade
to,
will take it
to
right
Slade.
now. He like it. I never, but right?
that's really
Can you
how
guys
that
see
goes.
that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
What
see
just
how good
happened
this
there?
program
I
was
wanna
for us?
try
We
one.
just designed a
He
knife.
just came up
So
with
is
a
this
new
going to
one.
be called the podcaster?
We call the shack.
The
Shack.
small northern crafter.
The Northern Crafter. There you go. Not
Something.
bad. No, I'm not hating it.
I
Not
really
hating
love
that idea.
elliptical blade
Now I'm
shapes like
excited.
that, so,
We need to
yeah.
end the podcast so we can go grind this.
All right.
And it wasn't even planned.
Yeah. Well, hey guys, we hope that you enjoyed today's shack. We always like talking about knife designs. Remember, you can always email us at
info@ltrateknives.com and throw in some comments or questions about knife design that you have, and we'll tackle them for you.
Yeah, we'll be glad to do another show on that. I think we talk about sheath carrying design in one of the upcoming shows too, and we're definitely going to talk about folders in some future episodes. We've got some things in the work, but for right now, we hope we helped you with some of the knife design. It was fun sitting around here talking, and we designed a new knife. So, yay, go team!
Yes.
Also, real quick plug: if you're interested in this kind of stuff and you'd like to learn more. Then we're not sponsored by Knife Steel Nerds, but I highly recommend their website. And they came out with a book recently. Knife Engineering is super cool. If you really like to geek out on this stuff like I do, you will enjoy it.
Right. And if you would like to sponsor the show, we sure are open to sponsorships.
We're here.
Just get a hold of Mikey, and we'll take care of you. Guys, thanks again for listening to The Shack. We have fun putting this together. And if you need more LTWK stuff, check out our website. If you want to get on the special cool stuff they need to
Join the Pout House Forum.
That's right.
It's
Get
super
on the
cool.
Pout House. And the man on the inside will let you know some cool
I
stuff
will
going
take
on.
your $20 and open up a wide world of forumness to you.
Right on. So there you go. Guys, thank you very much. Until next time, God bless you all.
See ya.
Bye.
I like Cheez-Its.